Welcome back for part 2 on social Darwinism and ecology. So while we might have a strong intuitive response to social Darwinism, the idea of survival of the fittest mixed with eugenics and the idea of some races are meant to survive in survival of the fittest, and some are supposed to fade into oblivion, is very icky and wrong. Not everybody will have the same response to ecology as a word, but those are more related than you might think. So let's take a look. So I wonder, maybe some of you will recognize these two men. If you do, just this is your time to be right. Shout it out, who you think they are. So on the left, we see Carl Linnaeus, known for categorizing a lot of life in biology. And on the right, we see Ernst Haeckel, a German scientist, and he wore many hats. He also wears the hat of artist. He's known for his drawings, and they're often also used as tattoos. And he is the person who coined the term ecology. So we'll take a look at both of these men and how, yeah, as a person of color, I feel icky about both. And also how they're situated in a historical context, because we looked at the linear as linear growth in the previous part. In this part, we look at the linear, how it creates ladders of hierarchy. So first, looking at Haeckel, I will read a little bit. In one version of the human family tree, Haeckel constructed 12 species that were scattered across 36 races. Haeckel organized these groups into a hierarchy. Indo-Europeans, specifically Germans, Haeckel's nationality, were at the top. Apes were at the bottom. In between were populations living far from Europe, including Aboriginal Australians, Southern African Hottentots, and Papuans from New Guinea. So the Papuans from New Guinea were placed at the total bottom. And he was particularly interested in inhabitants of New Guinea. He was also a eugenicist. So he matched those ideas of hierarchy with who is supposed to survive. And he coined the term ecology. The original definition from Ernst Haeckel, who defined ecology as was the study of relationship of organisms with their environment. And he held the particular idea that politics should be applied biology. So there are a lot of political thoughts permeating into biology, and then biology was supposed to be this neutral tool to then shape politics. This is again a quote, or the lowest savages, as he called them, were perceived Australian Aborigines that were closer to apes or even dogs in their reasoning faculties than to humans like Goethe or Darwin. Haeckel said Jesus' noble personality was not Semitic, but more characteristic of the higher Aryan race. So yeah, he goes down in history as both being anti-Semitic and anti-Black. Haeckel believed that the Germans were racially superior and deviated furthest from the common primary of the ape-like men. So some of the most repulsive ideas that Haeckel put out there was around eugenics and forced euthanasia. Although he was far from alone in these. He admired the Spartans because they practice infanticide of abnormal infants. So here we see racism coupled with ableism, to improve the race or the human survival of the fittest. Practice of that he saw both of advantage to the infants destroyed and the community. He recommended that sickly adults should also be eliminated to stop them spreading their genes. So he also recommended the execution of all incorrigible criminals. And he said that the unlucky ones would be put to death by painless and rapid poison. So he was an opponent of equality, of civil liberties, and of trade unions, and a supporter of a strong state whose interests took precedence over those of individuals. While he and Hitler never met eye to eye, he was immensely popular in a time when Hitler would have been a youth, and many also say that Hitler was influenced by him and he could have given him certain ideas. On the left, we see Linnaeus. Let me look up my notes. Carl Linnaeus, known for classification of life, and he made this Systema Naturae. I don't know if I pronounced that well. There were multiple editions starting from 1735. And in the 10th edition, he started making edits that were basically in line with scientific racism or founding scientific racism. So in the earlier editions, he talked about variations of humanity, but he didn't talk about races. But in this later edition, he started coupling his ideas of people of the 4 continents, or the 4 varieties of humans, to 4 temperaments or humors, their character. So Linnaeus based these varieties on physical characteristics such as skin color and hair color, geographic location, and perceived behaviors. So there are some examples. Homo americanus was defined as those with straight, black, and thick hair, gaping nostrils, beardless chin, and unyielding, cheerful, and free behavior. Homo europaeus were those with plenty of yellow hair, blue eyes, and were light, wise, and inventors. Then he had Homo asiaticus, who had blackish hair, dark eyes, and were stern, haughty, and greedy. And finally, he had his way of describing Homo africanus, which were those with dark hair and with many twisting braids, silky skin, flat nose, and swollen lips. And he described them as sly, sluggish, and neglectful. So we see in 2 of these men some of the founders of scientific racism, which couples their ideas of supremacy culture with biological foundation. And we see that while earlier there was hierarchy based on religion or Christianity, with God on top, then the angels, then humans, then beasts, and then at the bottom, plants, stones, and minerals. What happened under Enlightenment was a development where God was kicked off the throne, but humans were further stratified in which people were supposed to be biologically on top and which were meant for eventual extinction or determination. And that was, of course, practiced under colonialism with lots of violence. Oh, we're missing something. Let me see. Oh, here, Descartes. Yeah, thank you. So about this new chain of being, a few words considering Descartes, who is also one of the figures that plays into dualism that today our conceptions of environmental work still suffers from. So the whole idea of a separate nature was one that benefited colonial expansion and white supremacy politics. If nature is not you, then you can measure it, you can extract from it. If there is a dualism which creates others, it makes it both ethically and practically easier to manage. So one of his quotes is, for early modern materialism, the point was not only to interpret the world, but to control it. The quote is, to make ourselves, as it were, the masters and possessors of nature. So this is Descartes. And in the book Capitalism in the Web of Life by Jason W. Moore, he talks about how that still today has consequences in seeing environment as only a field that is acted upon and not an actor and a shaper of our very humanity. That we do not only create landscapes, but landscapes create us. So not only are we not independent, but we are interpenetrated at every level, from the body to the biosphere. So he really makes an appeal for this human history needs to be understood as an unbroken circle of being, knowing, and doing. And Cartesian dualism has so deeply fragmented our understanding of power, exploitation, work, and liberation. So those were some brief thoughts about social Darwinism and ecology that sets up the stage for our discussion of fascism and how that also manifests today in our ideas of who belongs in public space and what ways of violence are then utilized by the extreme right to police our public space. I'll stop sharing and I'll see you in the third edition.